Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2, where I'm excited to introduce the Protoss player in the red. It's D-Mawa, the Wall, Showtime, up against a player who's very likely to test how accurate that nickname truly is. The fastest player in the world, the Italian Stallion. It's Reynor, spawning as his native Zerg. A best-of-3 ZVP, with two of the most dramatic clashing styles that really you can get at this level of StarCraft 2. I think it's going to be one of those series. It's either going to be incredible or forgettable, but mediocrity is not something either of these two are accustomed to. So at the end of the day, hopefully it's something that you enjoy, something you like, or maybe even subscribe for. And Jimmy, I know it was lazy. 1,253 likes on this cast, on this series. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. We already see the standard production tab, the third base on the way. Oracle's in production. Oceanborn is the choice of map. 2 gases at the natural for Showtime. Quite early on. Getting those gases before the 4-minute mark indicates he certainly wants to tech up. A Reynor with just enough Zerglings to make... Oh. Nah, you can't infest that one. But Oracle comes back to burn away the additional lings. And Showtime with a minimalist but effective defense at the third. Reynor not going to challenge it, at least not early. There is the occasional German taxi build, the occasional soul stroll, which is when you just walk the queens across like Dark does sometimes. I guess everyone does that now and again, but it's become a little less popular lately in favor of going for a quicker lair tech for things like Hydras. And here we have Reynor with a Roach Warren and a lair on the way. Showtime pushing out with a handful of adepts, just enough to try to control the larva count from Reynor. Really encourage him to make some more Zerglings and calm down in the drone count. And actually right now, a bit of an awkward angle. The queen's coming in and targeting the Oracle. Get off my queen! Why are they allowed to just get in here all the time? Why is it like this? Just it's always like this, Brenda. Just 5 drones down. Reynor down to 50, but we'll replenish them quickly. How many? Ends up losing the adepts, but keeps the oracles alive, which... Don't tell the adepts this, but probably the best possible trade, especially early on, for Showtime to make. And behind it, Blink and +1, and already getting gases 5 and 6 at the third base. Showtime off to a roaring start economically, adding on some gateways. Looks like Reynor has no intentions of getting aggressive, but instead is building up drones. He's got an Evo chamber on the way, getting more gases, 4th base. He's pulling it all together. So with the queens to deflect any early aggression, and the creep spread looking pretty good. I don't think he's in a particularly bad spot to deal with any sort of follow-up attack. Though I'd be surprised if Showtime was committed to any all-in. We got Templar Archives explains where all that gas is intending to go. We already have an infestation pit for Reynor as well. Also teching up at an incredibly rapid pace. Now, I don't think it's going to be Swarm Host. We're not ruling it out yet. Much more likely to be the early Hive. But the Templar Archives, a solid choice against masses of units, especially Lings and Banes, but also Roaches. Pretty good against Hydras, just harder to close the distance. So... Despite the poking and prodding, the constant sharking around of the oracles, and some adepts sent in, Showtime with the active scouting. And now, for the first time, moving out with some Blink Stalkers, +1 about to complete. This is another attack designed to keep a Reynor honest, to keep him busy, and try to pull him back to the other side of the map. A setup at the 4th base, but some Zealots are warped in. Do they have charge done? No, not even started. But the Zealots plus the positioning of the cannons was good. And he was able to defend with relative ease. And now, Stasis catching a bunch of the Zerglings as they try to flank the Stalkers. The Oracle's covering them Now, you gotta be careful not to overstay your welcome. You can't kill those Zerglings in the stasis. Trying to set up another one. Right now, Showtime is, again, some aggressive defense. Keeping Reynor's attention and his units in his sight, so that way they can't slip by. And so far, yeah, there we go. Hydra Den. Overlord speed, as well as a Dropper Lord on the way. Not sure what that's going to be for yet. There are no Banelings. It's a little late to be doing any sort of Queen drop, but, I mean, drops in general are probably a bit underutilized in this matchup. Lurker Den is on the way. Lurker drops, obviously, a classic strategy older than Reynor himself. Ever since the Brood War. Showtime walling off his 4th base, just completely cutting it off with a nice gateway location. But look at the supply. Reynor with a huge amount of Roach Zergling, and it is indeed the Queens at the back for some anti-air. A Stasis and Storms combined. And watch over almost everything, and we've arrived! The Queens take out an Oracle. Showtime not really anticipating that, because who does that? The Queen push at the front. He picks off a little bit more, but Showtime so far holding strong. Yeah, it was a cheeky move, but now the Queens are waltzing back. I'm not sure why the Overlord isn't able to pick them up, but... And yeah, Showtime with more than enough. The Storm, I think, was the unknown quantity, the thing that Reynor didn't really anticipate. And with it, there was enough damage dealt, but an Immortal to take it out. A lot of Roaches are shaved off by the Storms. Charge is nearly done. Corrosive Bow's finding some decent hits there by the end of it, and Showtime not willing to just let Reynor go. Gonna take a few Roaches on the way out. But a very active defense yet again. Just sitting behind is not going to be enough against someone like Reynor. It's not like Showtime is building up towards carriers. His end game is going to be that Reynor-style Protoss of Immortal and Charge Lot and battle-ready armies that can fight heads up on the field. Armies intended to deal with lurkers. And we do have the +1 air weapons on the way. The ultimate Protoss, of course, is the Carrier Death Ball. But I think what Reynor himself, on the other side of this story, kind of popularized was not skipping the phase of the game where you have a ground army. Showing that you can, indeed. Lurkers are not that scary. They're only scary if they're able to get into a position where they have a concave and you can't even get out of your base. So Showtime is making sure that he doesn't find himself there. The Stasis, I'm not sure who that helps more, but a Stasis force field, only a couple Lurkers with this. Another attack over to the right flank. Oracle lights up. Revelation onto the Lurkers. Coming in from the top side. Several Templar pulls away, but a drop in towards the main. What's in there? Just some Roaches to keep him busy, but Showtime is absolutely annihilating this army outside the fort. The Roaches will be dealt with. Not a super pylon there, a bit awkward, but the Immortals blasting through the Roaches, though I think they may get 1 or 2 of them. Reynor realizing that at the last moment. More Immortals being chrono boosted out. Second Stargate is on the way. Fleet Beacon is completed. +1 air weapons. Protoss air weapons about to complete. Showtime holds the line in his main, in his natural, in his fourth, and now it's up to him. Does he want to go straight to carriers or keep fighting on the ground? The Archons merging after the Templar storms will get caught to an extent there, but still Immortal production continues as Showtime going up past half a dozen. Adrenal glands. Both players have smoothly made their way up towards the top of the tech tree. The only thing we're missing right now is that end game air tech. But Showtime filling in his first carrier. There is no Spire for Reynor, so he's still terrestrially bound at the moment. But Corrosive Bile zoning out. There's still creep over half the map. Couple carriers on the way. Showtime putting a timer on these Lurkers with those carriers. At least that's the intent. But of course, you don't want to let the Lurkers get into those decisive positions. So this Immortal Archon army is certainly doing a good job of zoning them out. Reynor makes one mistake, and it could spell disaster for his main ground army. And Showtime trying to force the issue. Zealots running by over to the left flank, dragging some of the units and attention back, giving him an opportunity to potentially jump on the Lurkers, but they're just too damn many. Stalker just ascending 10 lurkers on the field. Spire begins. I think Reynor has anticipated. I don't believe he's scouted. He did scout the fleet beacon at some point, and he's starting to realize that Showtime, it's not like he wants to play defense forever. The carrier has arrived. And that Spire going to become more and more relevant as time goes on. But the Hydra's battling through the cannon. Shield battery overcharge helps a lot, though. Showtime able to clean up so many of these lurkers. The charge launch chasing down. Revelation on top of everything. He's kept the Oracle alive. He still has one of them. Always have to have one. Observers are just simply unreliable. They can be killed. Revelation, not so much. You can't kill an idea. But you can kill a lurker that is under Revelation. More lurkers up to the north side. Looking like a juicy target for Storm there. Reynor agrees, pulls back. And Viper on the field. Feedback hits it first, though. No abduct. Good Storm onto the Hydras. Also clips the Overseer and some of the lurkers. Oracle in position. Oh, lurkers are eviscerating the northern flank, though. And the transfuses will help keep them intact. And Showtime, a bit of a false start on that attack. And his army crumbles before it can find any opportunity to take out the critical mass of lurkers. He has to refill, builds 3 more carriers. The Queens lead the charge. And Reynor has been untouched back at home for quite a while now. 86 to 85 workers. Showtime just giving up the southern base. And some of the probes with it. He's going to take another one over to the right side, but I feel like Reynor just achieved the first decisive victory for either player in this game. Yeah, the fact that Reynor was able to take out that base without losing a significant amount of his high-tech units. Reynor doesn't have a bunch of money in the bank either. He has minerals, but the gas count is about even with Showtime. Right now, he needs to limit Showtime's economy so he can't just pump out carriers the entire game. And Showtime right now needs to take his bases and make sure that Reynor can't keep doing that. Because at the moment, with the carriers against someone who has poorly upgraded and only a handful of corruptors, Showtime is building the better army, the better late-game death ball. But Reynor still has the economy that he doesn't need to be cost-effective, he just needs to be effective. Yanks in another carrier. That's 2 down. The Templar trying to move forward. Another observer goes into the Sporist, but another attack to the right. The Nexus was taken out by the lurkers. Creep spread is almost blocking another base to the south. In fact, it's already spread over and he can't even cancel it. He has to clear the creep. What a game. And only game 1. Reynor starting to build up. This is the phase of the game that Reynor has struggled with recently. The phase of the game that he looks so good with Protoss. So hopefully he can apply that hard-won knowledge on the other side of the story. There's a reason he's chosen to play Protoss against Zerg in many high-profile matches lately. It is a difficult proposition to fight this Templar carrier army for anyone who isn't named Cyril. Another exchange at the front. But Reynor does have the double Spire. In fact, he's making one of his Spires great again. So, with 2-2... Wow, only +2/+2 on the ground? The Storms for Showtime. He will sacrifice one into an Archon. Nidus at the back. I'm sure there are lurkers ready for that opportunity, but Zealots are warped in. He dropped in lurkers and then used that for vision of the Nidus. Meanwhile, the main army. He still has recall available. We're going into a base trade? Will he recall the carriers? There are no Templar to backstop this. A lot of those Hydras are badly bruised. Recalls to the afflicted base. And will box it out for now, but Nidus, this one might finish. He doesn't have enough warp-ins. In fact, Showtime is maxed out, so he can't warp in enough units, suffering from success. But the Zealots are able to get it barely in time. Another group of Zealots and Archons over to the north side. The lurkers will move into position to protect the base, but he's going to lose some drones, and the creep spread has receded throughout the map. Our lurkers working their way through. Still, Reynor is building up that bank. Meanwhile, but the upgrades are still amazing for Showtime. It feels it's trending towards Reynor, but 1 or 2 bad fights, and it could be disastrous. I think he went for the carrier, found an immortal, which is a bit of a tougher nut to crack. On the abducts. Nidus! The Nidus! It made it through, but he just keeps slapping them down. They're not free, but they're close to it. 75 apiece. The Zealots will slice through. The Overlord will finally be taken out. Goes into an Overseer just to try to buy itself more time. Another attack to the north. Observer, barely in position, but the Lurkers are just too much. An entire concave of them. Slice through. Meanwhile, the Immortal Carrier Templar Ball. Still dangerous. I like how few carriers that Showtime has. The carriers demand respect. You must respond to them. But you get too many carriers and the Corruptors become a very direct counter. Oh no. A prison of his own design. Showtime's own wall made it easier. He couldn't get back behind his own pylon to deal with these Lurkers. And now the Lurkers, Reynor found the one location where Showtime had walled it off so well, it's now working out for Reynor. And Showtime has lost a lot of units going for this. Forced to recall, the Corruptors trying to get one of the carriers. The carrier's a very direct response, losing some of the Templar. The escape Nidus is utilized. And Showtime suffering dramatic losses here. If you look at the bank, that's where most of the story is told. There are 3 Broodlords. A bunch of Lurkers are headed towards the, we'll call it a 5th base. Reynor working his way around yet again, averaging 660 actions per minute. Showtime no slouch, nearly 500 himself. Meanwhile, the double siege. Lurker, Broodlord. The carrier count has dwindled dramatically. The Lurkers are still being dealt with, but Reynor continues to outmaneuver Showtime. It looks like a Nidus was rebuilt in the same... Wait, there are 2 Niduses! And Showtime is scrambling. He has the army supply, but he just can't bring it to bear. He can't get back into his own base to deal with this. There are 5 observers. The Select All Army Hockey put in a workout here as he's getting desperate to bring back the detection. He will clean up the Lurkers. Reynor will be able to rebuild. Another double siege attack. The cannon's actually hitting the Broodlords to an extent. The Lurker... That's not how you're supposed to do it. 5 Lurkers and 5 Broodlords. It's not Siege Tank Liberator. Okay, those are Zerg units. Oh, a bunch of Corruptors are taken out by the Archons. Still 66 workers. Tempests are on the field to try to snipe off the Broodlords, which is most of their purpose. And Abduct gets one of the Tempests, tries to work his way through. There's so many observers, but no oracles on the field for easy revelation. The Zealots slice through another 6 drones, and Reynor's actually down to 56. The probes, where are you going? Oh, the Nexus was taken up, but Showtime was able to take the base up to the 2 o'clock position, so he's still mining. And in fact, he has more income. He's been able to send out just enough to keep Reynor at bay, and some of the ground army is caught. Only 2 Lurkers with this here, and plenty of observers to detect. The Zealots will slice through the drones. The minimap. Probes are attacking. What is going on? The probes! Predator probes attacking the drones. The probes have a real chance of taking out... Okay, there are 2 Zerglings. But the probes have done a, weird amount of damage. The probes doing damage to buildings. Oh my god. Oh my god. No. There's no way he kills this with probes. The probes are killing the hatchery. What am I watching? The Zerglings. Adrenal gland Zerglings are very scary. Probes are still okay. There's still a dream. Yes, there's the army in the middle. 25 probes dead. Well, actually, I think most of them are over here. But Reynor is forced to respond to the probes. Fungals in the center, but no more infestors to follow it up. Showtime loses 29 probes and a bunch of his army supply, but he's still got a lot of Immortal Archon to work with. Queens and Lurkers over to the left flank. The incomes have dwindled dramatically. Reynor is still maxed out, but his bank is gone. Showtime, not quite there anymore. 123 to 150 army supply, but so much of that is in corruptors for Reynor, which do nothing but start melting these buildings, which is, you know, actually quite a big deal at this stage of the game. Showtime is building 5 more probes at a time. So the corruptors are a bit of a liability. He doesn't have the gas to make broodlords. So having 34 supply of corruptors really skews the numbers here. It makes it so they're effective ground armies. Of course, the corruptors could potentially take out the observers if he has detection. Another double siege force, the Archon, yanked into the middle of everything. Showtime. The corruptors slowly but surely melting through. Trying to get the Templar archives as well. The Templar archives is kind of an important part of this. He does force Reynor to micro away. Showtime with an army still very dangerous. He's got 5 High Templar, 6 Archons, 18 near max upgrade Stalkers. +3/+3 with +2 shields. Lurkers try to come in, but Reynor is down to 1.5 mining bases without even enough drones. He's consuming the hatchery that was almost killed by probes. If that hatchery dies, and that's the end of Reynor's income, we can credit the probes. Though I'm sure Reynor would have liked to have the probes mining instead. He did lose a lot of them, and he still has. Well, that's just a bunch of Zerglings. Reynor used most of the rest of his minerals on these links. And the Zealots somehow managed to stall them out for a little bit longer. The fully upgraded Zerglings will be ripping through. Wait, he doesn't have +3 Carapace. Picks off another Broodlord. Zerglings into the main. Zerglings in the natural. But the Archons are back with a vengeance. But wait, there's so many Lurkers. How many Lurkers have died? 36, and he has 16 on the field. What crazy armies. Neither player has gotten to that death ball stage. Showtime got close, but he never really had the carrier count to power through, because Reynor has been keeping him too busy on the ground. And obviously the carriers are no longer here. Reynor closing in, but the army supplies are drawing dangerously close to even. Those 2 Vipers are incredibly important. Looking for more storms. Shield battery. Sewing together the shields on that Templar. Another base is taken out. And a lot of this army has been softened up. Only a couple Broodlords wading through the storms here. A single Oracle. Showtime sending out another force. The Archons, and there's a Tempest here as well. Both players trying to partition. Oh, now, okay, Showtime. He takes this Nexus. This Lurker spread. I can't believe it's not butter. Oh my god. He has so many Lurkers. But at the same time, this army, the Queens are getting caught. Zerglings against mass Archon. And it's kind of working. Oh my god. He needs the Zealots up here. A few Hydras coming up. The Archon's chewing through the Zerglings, though. Showtime will end up winning this fight. And the drones, the base itself, the probes did most of the work. The Archons and Zealots can do the rest. I guess the base isn't that important, as long as you kill the drones. And Showtime is still expanding up to the north. Another revelation. Feedback. A single Broodlord. Lurkers slowly chipping through. No, the probes get eviscerated. 19 to 25 workers. Showtime backed into a quarter closer to Reynor's main than his own. Detection is the struggle right now. But there is, unfortunately for Showtime, he's an above-board Protoss, and he doesn't have DTs because there's no Overseer. He's going for it, trying to power through the Lurkers. The Lurkers will retreat. Most of them take it out. Zealots on top, but the Overseer! Overseer comes in and snipes off the Observer, and the Oracle, no! When he needed it most, it vanished. And Reynor took out the detection. Almost certainly, that army would have been enough to power through. But now he has to rebuild detection to deal with the Lurkers. And the game is still very much in doubt. Reynor is barely mining, but Showtime is somehow worse. Lurkers on both fronts. He's trying to power through. Where's the detection? Here comes an Overseer. But he needs to snipe the Overseer. He does. He gets it. But it's been too late. Showtime is down to well, under 100. He's supply blocked under 100. The Lurkers are slicing through. Showtime has less probes than he started with. He's slowly but surely working on the Lurkers. Reynor may have enough to hold on. Don't storm your own observer. Oh my god. Gets the Nexus. Lurkers are going through the natural. That one base is still mining. And Showtime taps out. Oh, if the probes... I don't want to put it all on the probes. But if the probes had killed that base, then Reynor wouldn't have had anything. Though... Still 4 Lurkers. Showtime was 7 probes. Supply blocked at 65 over 55. There's still 7 Lurkers there. Yeah. It's just not happening. Especially since Reynor still has any income. But what a game! Reynor holds it together. With duct tape and lurker spines. And is able to keep it just enough of his army. If he hadn't sniped the corruptors, which he invested so much into, and were a liability, if those corruptors had not sniped the observers, and kept Showtime off of his lurkers for just a little bit longer, I think Showtime clears the army, and likely with it, takes the game. It all came down to that. Nearly half an hour comes down to that. And the crazy part is, at no point did either player seem to have a comfortable advantage. Usually in those longer games, we kind of reach a stalemate, either with both players sitting back on their death ball, or one player clearly waiting to just kill the other. But at no point there was it clear if either player had an advantage. Yes, Reynor had the bank, but by the end, he did not. It is very difficult to break a well-controlled Templar Immortal army, especially with that sort of more active Zerg army, not like Infestor Broodlord, but instead Lurker. What I'm trying to say is that was madness. Zerg versus Protoss. That Reynor-style Zerg versus Protoss. I'm just going to give them credit for both sides. Both the active Protoss ground and multi-pronged Zerg has become, in my opinion, probably the most entertaining late game in the game right now, just between all of the matchups. Because I think this is important. Both sides can fight. Both sides are able, if you have detection, which is still a big asterisk there, but both sides are able to take an engagement without it being decided almost immediately, it feels like. Like, storms are good, but they're not going to be enough to kill lurkers, and aren't necessarily enough to kill hydras. Lurkers are great, but the Immortals and Archons can take a pounding. Alright, they're designed for it. So, the give and take back and forth, and the actual micro-ability of even these somewhat unwieldy armies is my favorite to watch. Well, actually commits to the Adept Shade, the Showtime, denying a lot of mining, and actually going to get 3 drones, which is way too many, way too much for the early Adepts. Not entirely. Well, Reynor did end up taking. That is part of the reason to block the natural. In fact, a big reason to block the natural with the early probe, and why so many players will do it, is to open up more opportunities to shave off workers and just make it all together more uncomfortable for the Zerg player. So, another success on that front. Showtime setting up his third. Reynor was trying to delay it, but there's not enough Zerglings. We'll see. Showtime has favored small adept attacks lately, Just something to poke out and force a response out of the Zerg. 3 Adepts right now, but 4 or 5 Adepts is enough that you tuck them behind a mineral line. The Zerglings aren't going to be... They just don't cut it. You don't need glaives. You don't need any sort of upgrades. They're just... You need them to defend against Zerglings in the first place, so... The Oracles get cut off, but a 3rd Oracle slides in, but the Queen defense teams are in place to deal with it. And now, 5 Adepts. Showtime quite predictable with this. Reynor with enough Zerglings in place. Yeah, he will clean up the Adepts. The only reason he doesn't finish all of them is because the Oracles come back to save them, but... It is a bit unreliable for Protoss. The Zerg will adapt. And in Game 2, Reynor is already ready. With the Zerglings and the Queens, and despite that little bit of early damage, just moving out with the first few gateway units here. Will Reynor bite? He's not... Okay, now he's building a few more Zerglings. Blink and +1 are out the way. On the way. The Oracles can be used to help clear the creep here as well. Stasis. Templar Archives. Showtime with another high-tech composition. Once all those tools on the table. Some zoning cannons there. You don't usually want to stack up too many of your defenses. Makes them a lot more vulnerable to banelings and lurkers. Also, side note, we didn't see a baneling nest at all in that previous game. No banelings. Instead, opting for the lurker broodlord investment. Kills the ling, triggers the stasis anyways. The Zerglings will force a cancel on the 4th base. Showtime with a funneling wall on his 3rd. Something that I think it's better to not... Well, we'll see if he ends up just hardwalling off. You know what, I was going to say, I think it's better to let the Zerglings in so you can kill more of them. But I could have held off for 2 seconds and Showtime hardwalls off his 3rd. So that way... Counterattack is... You need a significant commitment to break through that. Zergling's likely not going to cut it. Infestation Pit and a Spire. Simultaneously. I don't think this is for Mutas. But I haven't seen a Broodlord rush in quite a bit. I seriously doubt we're going to see Mutas, but I guess it's on the table here as... Showtime has shown a tendency towards those less mobile ground compositions. Maybe Reynor just wants all of the options. The Spire likely going to be scouted by the Oracles. Yep. Comes in. Spire is already done. Phoenix begins immediately for Showtime. I wonder how much of that is like, I might need it eventually, and if he scouts it, he's gonna freak out. And it kind of feels like that situation where you don't know if he's building Mutas. But if he is, you need feeding. You cannot just be running around with Blink Stalkers. Blink Stalkers are not a counter. They're a stopgap. If that. On a good day. 2 more evolution chambers on the way for Reynor. Double Lurker Den. Alright. That seems intentional. In order to go for both Lurker upgrades and all... Okay, alright. Well, he's just gonna get everything. That's what we're doing here. He's got the Spire, he's got the Infestation, but he's got triple Evolution Chamber. 12 Hydras on the way, but Showtime does have Storm done. Building up the Immortal count, working on his own upgrades. Stasis catches a weird amount of units. I think he wanted to just try to target it. 2 more Immortals in production, as well as +2 Protoss ground weapons. Catches some of the Hydras here. Lurker Dens aren't very helpful if they're not done yet. And Showtime is building up to a potentially maxed out attack timing. Already starting the +1 air weapons, anticipating a potential need. He saw the Hydras which means eventually lurkers are on the way. So the +1 air weapons has begun, because you really need to have some upgrades for those carriers. Lurkers are actually quite difficult to kill quickly if you don't have the attack, as they do have the armor. We got 1, 2 more Stargates in production at the back of the base. The upgrades tab is continuing to grow dramatically. Scouting Immortal off to the left side there. Ground armor level 1 now for Showtime. Fleet beacon nearly completed. And the stasis catches a lot of the Zerglings and a good warping to hold the door. Here comes everything for Ray. Oh my god. 4 of the storm. Adaptive talent, seismic spines, +1 melee, and carapace. All done for Reynor. Double Nidus. But the immortal count is so damn high. The Zerglings come out of stasis and get into the main. They don't have adrenal glands, though. I don't think they're going to find too much. The Templar count is quite significant here. 50 more Zerglings on the way. Working on the creep. Immortals and Templar. Wait, okay, that's a changeling in stasis, which is the weirdest thing I've seen. I spent a second parsing that one. If you neural parasite units and then go into your opponent's stasis, does it trigger it? I would imagine so. Is that going to become relevant? Doubtful. The storms, trying to ward away the lurkers, but there's enough of them. Ooh. 3 carriers in production, 13 Hydras on the way. +1 air weapons and +3 ranged attack for Reynor. +3 Protoss ground coming in as well. Another Nexus ripped apart. Not even a cancel there. Not a huge deal at this stage. More lurkers taken down, but Reynor is pushing forward. He's got 91 drones to back it up. There's 3 oracles here trying to hold the line. Shield battery overcharge is used. Showtime has so many immortals and just punching his way through the lurkers, obliterating them. But what's happening in the natural? We got Zerglings in, the carrier here to clean it up. Cannons, just these little choke points Showtime is utilizing. But still, so many probes are dying. 60 probes left. He's lost 20 of them. Showtime still pushing through at the front. Missile attacks, level 3 on the way. And now fully upgraded Hydras. But does he have enough to stop the carriers and the Templar? The double Nidus, unintentionally loaded there. Feedback on the Viper, looking for more. Great revelation. 23 probes dead, but Showtime still has enough to maintain his economy and reinforce this push. Showtime has as much gas as Reynor has minerals in the bank, which is definitely a better position to be in. The Zerglings, and a double Nidus into the main. 1 wasn't cutting it before, but 2 might be enough. The carrier doesn't have enough interceptors to take this out in a timely manner. Showtime actually pulls back entirely to deal with this, but it was mostly a distractic out of Reynor. Did the Hydra Den die? I believe it did. It seems like it was at the 3rd base. So the Hydra Den has to be rebuilt, otherwise he can't eventually make his way up towards the lurkers. Corruptors now on the way, but Showtime has built. How many immortals? He's got 8 immortals. He hasn't lost a single one. They're living up to their name. The Templar, he's only lost 2. And no Archon, so far, just an incredibly cost-effective game. Showtime has lost less than 1,000 gas. Despite all the action, they've both been thrown away. Pretty much only mineral units. The Oracle lives. Carrier's holding the line to the right. Looks like this base will stay intact. And the Templar to back it up. Showtime. Foxes Reynor out of both sides. There's still... How did you even get vision? It's a changeling. More Zerglings on the way. Carriers over the top. The Templar underneath. Viper dies while it abducts the carriers. Corruptors may take it down. Storms across the front line. The Hydra's weathering them. And the carriers stay together. Reynor loses a lot of supply. The Zealots were warped into the main. Showtime, no stranger to building cannons to defend his base. At Showtime, I think, taking a lot more initiative. This map does not have the same... it's just smaller. Alright, that's what I'm getting to. Reynor can't counterattack nearly as effectively as he was able to on Oceanborn. And Showtime is able to lock down 5 bases while still remaining defended, unlike in the previous match. So right now, Showtime, I think, has the initiative, and if there was to be an advantage, it's his as well. Now, Reynor is still nearly maxed out. This is still an army that, it's very scary on paper, but you walk into the wrong set of lurkers, find yourself in the wrong neighborhood, and things can go downhill very quickly. Reynor is rebuilding those bases. He's now got the top right, going for what was his once and former third. The center base as well. +2 carapace and melee attacks. Now completed. Something a little bit more. Nidus is all over the place. A flanking Nidus for the lurkers. Forces out a recall. The lurkers will duck back into the Nidus as soon as the oracles come back, but gets 6 probes and drags the recall out. God, that's a lot of Immortal Archon. That is a beefy Protoss army right there. And some Templar behind to really complement things. The big weakness of the Immortal Archon is a well spread out kind of Lurker, Hydra, or even Broodlord army. But the Templar can help break up the exact counters. Oh no, he lost the Observer to a Spore Crawler. God, these armies are struggling so hard to even get it to really bring themselves to bear. Sometimes just better to split them up into their constituent parts. Though those Archons can't go back to Templar. Until death do us part, they say. Things slow down a bit. Only a bit, but Showtime taking a 6th base. Reynor has rebuilt his hatcheries. Still with a lot less in the bank. Stasis. But Showtime being very careful not to overextend. I think he knows he has the army composition. But he also knows how easy it is to throw it away. Also something you gotta be wary of is infestors. I don't think Reynor's built a single one in this series. Usually it's like pulling teeth to get him to build infestors. And this is no exception. But the threat is there, and if you don't have the detection, Neural Parasite especially, can turn the entire game with your own units. Trying to do some hold position micro. Some of the Archons and Zealots come back to defend, funneling their way through. Meanwhile, another army in the center. The Immortals bashing through. Storms across the board. The Lurkers trying to flank, but the Storm on the back line as well. Showtime can't go back, so he goes forward. Punching through the Lurkers. Doesn't quite have the detection, though. And just like that, Reynor closes in and crosshatches the Protoss army. Slices it up from all sides, drawn and quartered. And there goes the entirety of the Immortal count. Fully reset. Not a single Immortal on the field. That's exactly what Showtime was trying to avoid, and exactly what Reynor was trying to make happen. And Reynor gets the better end of it here. Showtime has to exhaust essentially the rest of his bank in rebuilding. Reynor still, Mass Lurker is good, but has some clear vulnerabilities, and the carriers have arrived. Not unrelated. The Queens are making their way down in order to try to spread some of this creep. There's another stasis. That one gets taken out. Another stasis over to the right. Catches so many Zerglings. Storm softening up the Lurkers. The Queens. Brenda, why are we doing this again? Because no one else can heal. For some reason. Just abandoning the base to the top right as Reynor focuses an escape Nidus for the drones. And an Infestor is in production. Does he have Neural? He does not, but even a single Infestor Another stasis locks out the Zerglings. A creep-dropping troop of overlords here. Trying to just take out, maybe for Microbial Shroud, trying to just take out the Interceptors. I think doing a pretty good job of it thus far. Overlords, well, he's going to be immensely supply blocked. Wow, 188 over 150. Reynor actually can't get unsupply blocked, but the Hydra Queen count is too much. And the Interceptor count has dropped too low. The Zealots are working their way through the spines. The backbone of the defense is easily sliced through. Reynor, again, here we go. Reynor trying to base trade. Still plenty of carriers. Warping in Templar to the outlying bases. Going to make it painful to get anywhere here in Showtime. I think Showtime much better prepared for this sort of base trade scenario than we saw in the last game. 153 to 200 supply. Both sides unable to build more units for now. But both of them doing a good job of making that less true by helping take out all their opponent's workers. Showtime rebuilding a cyber core. He's got some cannons and some Templar building energy. I believe he does still have recall available. Reynor no longer has any mining. He is down to effectively 0. Showtime only has 1 base, but that's infinitely more than Reynor at the moment. That cannon is so well positioned. A single Zergling. He has to bring the Zerglings all the way around. The positioning of Showtime's buildings is really helping him out. There are 4 observers here. He has to be very careful to make sure that number stays above 0. Otherwise, we'll see a repeat, potentially, of the previous game. Reynor keeps losing Overlord. Showtime has lost so many pylons in Nexi. He's not going to be able to rebuild for quite a while. But he's at 183 to 138 supply. Oh, fighting this army heads up. He has the money. No, you got to be... Don't lose those observers. Oh, my God. He's just fighting heads up. Loses 1 carrier. But just target the Overseer. Stop stressing me out like this, Showtime. That's the only detection. I can't believe it. Oh my God, he loses the Orc. No, 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 not like this. How many observers are left? 3. Okay, the Corrupt. Oh my God. He has to storm Corruptors in order to save the Nexus. Oh my God, you gotta be careful returning the minerals to that Nexus. You trip and fall into it, it's gonna die. Oh my God. So evenly matched. Just this time, Showtime had a bit more of an advantage, and he may be able to carry it through. Reynor in a very similar position to his counterpart in the last game, with just not quite enough units and just not quite enough economy. And now I think Reynor is potentially just going for the full... Oh my God, I don't know how many stasis have triggered in this game, but I'm sure Reynor is triggered by them. There's lurkers. How many Templar are on the field? There's still 7 Templar. I think Reynor is going to go for... Like, his best chance is an actual full-on kill all your buildings base trade. But Showtime isn't going to let that happen. I think... Therefore I am. But also... Yeah, Reynor's rebuilding a spawning pool. This Nexus is re-shielding. The carriers are coming in, targeting the lurkers. That observer in position. Just working his way through. Please just target the Overseer. The Interceptor count is dwindled. Okay, Showtime. Oh, but the storms are devastating. He baited him into it. I think he's got it. Oh my God, he lost another observer. He's down to 2. That's the only detection. There are still 6 lurkers. But now, remember, neither player knows exactly the supply count. They don't know exactly how many bases. Obviously, they both know. The fact that there are bases in these locations means that drama has happened. But the main base is gone. The hive is gone. Again, Showtime did not build a Dark Shrine. And even if he did, it probably would have died. But the only detection is spores and a lair. Reynor gonna fight it out. He doesn't know the supply count. He doesn't know the amount of carriers. Well, he knows the amount of carriers, but not how many Templar behind. He's trying to fight against the mineral rebuild cost. of the interceptors. I honestly feel like Showtime is playing into his hand a bit here. He's trying to trade interceptors for anything. I guess as long as he keeps the carriers alive, that is a sustainable process. And Showtime just has over double the army supply. It's carriers and Archons. Remember, he lost all those Immortals and the rest of the army in the middle of the field. So... Hydra-dented infestation pit being built for the second time this game. Or third, actually, on the Hydra-den, I think. More Overlords going down. The Storms are actually storming his own interceptors. But Showtime is grinding through. And the carriers, GG. We're all tied up. What a series. These two so evenly matched. I actually want to look at the units lost real quick. Oh my god. 242 interceptors, but only 3 carriers taken out. A highlight there. A little bit of everything. Buildings, as many different types of buildings as units taken out. More for Reynor. Wow. What? Well, we're all tied up. Honestly, so far, it feels like the games have followed the map. Oceanborn, a little more space to work with. Reynor was able to pressure both sides until Showtime was caught slightly out of position and eventually carried it through. But Showtime, on a bit of a smaller map, was able to lock down his bases easier and work his way through the army composition, despite some mediocre fights in the mid-game. So, going into game number 3, the decider. Site Delta. Which, honestly, I'd put in between. It's not as large as Oceanborn. Or at least it's not... it's up there, though. It's, quite a significant... there's a lot of counterattack potential. So we'll see if Showtime mixes it up at all. Though, I think there's no clear favorite on it. Oceanborn is definitely a larger map. And it doesn't come down to the map necessarily either. Let's not undersell the strategy from these players. The immortal count out of Showtime to just bully the lurkers. Right up until they got bullied in turn, but... the Templar usage is impeccable as well. I haven't seen Storms be so effective against an opponent who was actually reacting to them in quite a while. Not so much that they're winning the fights on their own, but they're there when they're needed. And that is not something that all Protoss follow through on. Showtime always has the right pieces of the puzzle. So I feel like he's a rarity for Protoss, it kind of feels like. Like, he always has the right units. It's not always enough. But he's set up his bases, and he's built up his tech, and he's put himself in a position for victory. Just that last step is the hardest part. For more profound nothing statements, make sure to like and subscribe. It's about the journey. It's about the building the carriers, not the having the carriers that matter. So he kills 3 drones with 2 adepts. Forces out some Zerglings. A couple Zerglings got in from Reynor as well. Bit of an odd start. Single Zergling. Speed about to finish. See if he brings back an Oracle here. Unlikely to cancel the Nexus outright. Zerglings on the pylon. Forge on the way. And 2 guests the net. It's like Showtime. He hasn't started a Twilight. He has started at Twilight. Oh! Oh, he didn't have... Either he didn't react or he just didn't have the minerals. No, he had the minerals. But the probe not able to block out. I mean, this is not... No, the Oracle comes back. You're gonna get a full scout. Which... ooh. A recall of another Oracle, I believe? Yeah, from the other side of the map. Reynor being very annoying with these Zerglings. Is it going to be Blink from Showtime? He's got another Oracle on the way. A bit of a different start here. Now, more Adepts. Yeah, it is Blink. Sticking with it. No charge this time. The Adepts going to force the Zerglings out. Reynor only has 56 drones to Showtime's now 54 probes. So, certainly, in order to kill all those probes and keep that pressure on, it takes Zerglings. Zerglings which... are not drones. Yes, I told you there'd be more profound statements. But building all those Zerglings is an economic hit in and of itself. And that's why Showtime right now actually has a significant worker lead. I said that, but then Reynor finished like 10 more drones. But this is doing more than enough to justify the cost. The mining time and the drone kills themselves. 7. He shades through at the net. Wow, this is really adding up. Showtime now. 4 more gates on the way. This, very importantly, bought him the time to get his Blink and his +1. There's no way Reynor has any sort of decisive timing. Yeah, he's going to have a few Zerglings, but there's 3 Oracles here. 4 more gates are on the way. Blink and +1 are being produced, which means Showtime is going to be able to put together his entire mid-game force without any real opportunity for Reynor to even pretend to threaten. At the same time, Reynor, he knows exactly what Showtime's doing. He's building an infestation pit on its... There's a Hydra Den. I was wondering if we would see the lurkers again. It looks like that's the direction we're going. He canceled the Hydra Den in favor of a Roach Warren, which is certainly a new choice. Queens will zone out the Oracles. We haven't seen too many Roaches in this series at all, as we've kind of skipped that early phase of the game for the most part. Partially because Reynor hasn't really attempted any crazy timings. I guess on Oceanboard he did a bit, but... And also partially because Showtime hasn't forced the issue. He's happy to sit back, build a 4th base, get 72 plus probes, Storm +2 charge. I'm just reading the production tab now, but still. Hive is on the way. Roach speed. It almost feels like this is Reynor intentionally trying to switch it up. By skipping the Hydras, he's getting the... What's it going to be, Reynor? No Baneling now still. We haven't seen a single Baneling in this entire series. Showtime anticipate... Reynor's like... And I took that personally. Reynor anticipating, or Showtime anticipating potentially Mutas, just getting cannons in his mineral lines. Also good against Nidus, covering his bases, literally. 95 drones for Reynor. Ultraless Cavern. So, that's how it's gonna be. Full Zerg in game 3. Not gonna bother with that late game siege scenario. Reynor is going to try to batter this wall down. Adrenal glands on the way. This is much more Reynor style than a more measured surgical lurker late game. It just is a higher risk for potentially higher reward, where the Ultras and the Zerglings and the Banelings can be countered by Storm and Immortals and Archons But if Showtime doesn't react in time or even in a particular way, he could easily crumble under the weight of 200 supply, well, really 300 supply Zerg. 4 dropper lord. I think he's gonna drop Banelings. What year is it? Or just Zerglings into the main, either way. Adrenal glands, chitinous plating, neural parasite. Yeah, looks like the dropper lords for the Zerglings. Triple immortal production. Showtime clearly anticipated the need for a strong ground army. The dropper lords are set up. The Zerglings and Ultras outside. Changelings taken out by the probe, but more Zerglings coming in. Reynor trying to drag the army out of position as the drops come in, and of course, deal with this base. Storm hits a bunch of the Lings. But here we go. Look at that setup from Showtime. But of course, Reynor is just going to drop over the top of it. And a bunch of Banelings rolling in towards the northern base, but the stasis stopped right there, criminal scum. Well, the Banelings are rolling in, still gonna find 15 probes. And Showtime down to 71. And it's manageable for now. The Stalkers and the Zealots and the Archons, oh my, able to deal with the rest. And those Banelings are about to come out of stasis kind of conspicuously, but Showtime realizes we'll warp in. It will be dealt with. But the Templar! Near full energy Templar taken out by the casual Banelings. Showtime dropping the ball on that one, but the Ultras are coming in. Here come the Zerglings as well. So many. How many Zerglings are on the field? 100 and dwindling fast. But the Immortals move up to blast through the Ultralisks. There's not too many harder counters. Corruptors on the way. Broodlords clearly on the agenda. The Greater Spire is done. +1 air for Showtime, but I don't believe he even has a fleet beacon, as he's been focused on building up this ground army. Another round of Banes, a whole bunch of Zerglings. The Observer in place to spot all this, and the Storm chews through dozens of Lings. Reynor not stuck on the Ultra Zergling. He's got the Broodlords at the back. The Ultras versus the Archons. Are there any there are 4 infestors. He does have Burrow. Neural Parasite is done. One of the best counters to Immortals is Immortals. Reynor understands that. Just turning a few of them around in one of these fights and distracting the rest of the army from the Ultras could turn the entire game. Still so tense. What a series between these two. Oh, like and subscribe. Corruptors, +3 ground weapons. The Broodlords as a spot defense option. Pretty solid against the Zealots who can't fight back, and the Stalkers who can barely fight at all. 8 drones down. Another group of Zealots on the 8 o'clock, 8:15 base. The Stalkers ripped apart. The Archons as well, and gets out before the Storm can do too much to... Oh my god, he triggers all the barriers with his own Storm. But that base is dead. More Lings, Banes, and Ultras. Not much money. A mothership as the counter here for Showtime. A vanguard of cannons will hold the line. So scared of Overseers, as they could be the Herald of the Nidus. Mothership halfway done. Zerglings overrun. Still working on +1. The shields. But, oh my god, that's a ton. The Zerg! Infestor Broodlord. Brenda! Are we really doing this again? I don't... Of course we are! I don't... Well, that is a microcosm of late-game Zerg. Infestor Broodlord with some queens. Kind of missing the meat for the potatoes there. That doesn't... That is the best parts of the army with absolutely nothing else. Some spine crawlers. He's actually, I can't even see the infestors. Full energy. If he keeps them directly under the broodlords, there's a chance that Showtime won't realize they're there. Of course, he can also burrow them, which is even more under the broodlords, technically, so my statement is still correct. But the game still... These deadly late-game armies. The Sporus coming together. Immortals over to the left flank. They've already broken through. The spines are repositioning, and infestors underneath. The Tempest. No tectonic destabilizers to chew through, but he's working his way. This is right outside Showtime's base. There's the tectonic destabilizers. That extra building damage. The fact that Tempest can't one-shot creep tumors does not spark joy. I have +2 Tempest or 1 creep tumor. Who would win? Well, eventually the Tempest, but it takes longer than you'd think. Meanwhile, the Mothership! Oh, Mothership! What are you gonna do? Cloaks, but like, that's an Overseer, so... More for dramatic effect than anything else. And the Mothership hits like, it's more emotional damage than actual damage. Meanwhile, the Tempests are chewing through the Broodlord's targeted, one of them taken out. The Infestors looking for Neural Parasite. Tempest also very good against Tempest, but the Revelation spots the Infestors. The Destabilizer's on the way. And, oh, wait, the Neural Parasite, he grabs the Immortals. He gets like 4 of them. And now the Ultras are stuck. But the Immortals are easily obliterated by their brothers as the Zerg have taken them over. Though you have to be very careful not to let them go at the wrong time. Re-grabs them, taking out the rest, working his way through the ground army. And the Immortals beating each other while the Ultras are actually picked apart by the rest. And, well, the Zerglings get a lot. Unclear. A Pyrrhic victory, it seems, for Reynor in that fight. And, well, no. A straight-up victory for Reynor in that fight. As he kills almost twice as many resources, including, most importantly, that valuable Immortal count. Reynor loves his Ultralisks, and he just opened up an opportunity to use them even more. More Immortals pounding their way through. 3 Ultras, 2 Infestors on the way. I think that really defines the situation. Mass cannons. Batteries in front actually walling off, which is very smart because batteries don't draw aggro like cannons do. They're not considered a threat. So units will target cannons nearby before the battery, so they can kind of be used as a wall, much like gateways. Usually better to put them out in front with cannons behind. But the Mothership complementing the army here. And with Time Warp or potential active cloaking, Showtime could potentially pick a decisive fight against the ground army. But Reynor, look at how much money he has in the bank. This game has gotten just wild. Again, 3 games in a row of some of the best Zerg versus Protoss, and Zerg versus Protoss, as the Neural Parasites come through. But the Infestors, the High Templar, 0 out of 5 on Yelp. Those Infestors turn my friends against me. So toxic. Robo Bay is on the way. I think he's angling for disruptors as well, but the Mothership. Vipers are finally here, and get over here! Finally, the Mothership is picked off. Dramatic death, but I do think it helped a lot with helping to push through with the fight. Nice snipe. Stasis Zerglings will act as a force field against the Ultralisks. Another fight coming through. The Broodlords on their own. The Tempests are on the other side of the map, so the Broodlords have nearly free reign, though the Stalkers are going to try to challenge it. Reynor has to be very careful. He doesn't have much underneath. Both sides still have money in the bank, with plenty of workers to maintain their economy for now. But that could change very quickly. We have an Archon with less than full HP, which is a very rare sight. The army is recalled in as Reynor brings it together. yanks in some of the Tempest, but beautiful Storm on the Corruptors. Who's outflanking who? The Oracle's moving through. Storms on the Broodlords. Ultras to box out on the ground. But there's nothing challenging the Tempest. It looks like the Stalkers underneath will work on the Broods. The Ultralisk should be obliterated by the Immortals. And at the end of the day, the Ultras have nowhere to run. Doesn't matter how good their speed upgrades are. Showtime actually dips heavily in supply. But I think he took a much better... Yes! In the last 2.5 minutes, Showtime has killed 11,000 minerals, 5,300 gas to 5k 3.5. 9 Broodlords, 9 Infestors, 5 Ultras. Not too many key units. You might be like, what about the mothership? I said not too many key units. Did I stutter? Meanwhile, though, a few Zerglings come in, will drag Showtime back. Reynor still has more money in the bank. He can't afford too many more fights like that. A bit of a disjointed angle there, and Showtime was able to control the chaos well enough to end up coming out on top. But Reynor still has an army to contend with. How much is... He's got 9 Broodlords, 5 Ultralisks, 5 Infestors. Another base is taken out. The Broodlords raining home. Yanks... Wait, but why though? There's nothing to shoot at it. Oh no. I think he wanted to neural parasite it. It was more of a I can, but the Corruptors weren't there yet. There was nothing to take out the Tempest in an awkward exchange. They're both still maxed out. Another army. The constant multi-pronged fights. The Immortals may go down, but they're gonna take a bunch of Ultras with them. The Ultras pull back, chewing through 3 more Immortals there. Certainly not an accurate name, as 9 of them have died thus far. 11 Ultras, though, in turn. Well, +3 shields in production. What a game. What a series. Still unclear. Showtime, his bank is dwindling, but Reynor has not really been able to make much progress. Showtime has abandoned the idea of carriers because there are no lurkers on the field. The Tempest, a much more direct counter to Broodlords. The carriers are more for clearing lurkers. They don't do much against Broodlords and Ultralisks. Another base taken out. The Zergling's trying to counter, but Showtime has another army. He storms through his own mortals again. Showtime keeping multiple armies under control while Reynor pokes and prods at the defenses. 670 APM. He plays this fast and loose style that is both the most entertaining and sometimes the death of him. Zerglings in towards the main. Gonna get the Templar archives. A few Banelings to bash through the defenses and make it that much easier for the Ultras to chew through. No, guys. They're gonna do it again. We're base trading. Oh, but beautiful Fungals hold down the army. Still, though, the Fungals keeping things at bay. The Storm's going through. No Oracles here for Revelation, and Showtime is forced back for now. Another Fungal to hold down the Immortal Archon. Another one, but feedbacks on the rest of the Infestors. The Storms are good, but the Broodlings are better, and they take out the Templar. Meanwhile, the Ultras are chewing through the 3 o'clock base. I'm not sure how much is left. The Stalkers try to retreat behind the lines. There's some Broodlords over here as well. Another Ultra will try to retreat. Barely makes it out. Showtime is out of money in the bank. Reynor doesn't have a ton, but he has just slightly more. He can rebuild. And he's rebuilding. Oh, but Showtime chases him down before the Stalkers, well, before the Zerglings come in. The Storms whittle down the Zergling count. Reynor dips. He plummets in supply, losing all of those Zerglings he just rebuilt. How much larva is left? 3. Not much. 3. No zeros. Just 3. He's building 13 corruptors to try to take it out. It loses 2 infestors. The rest are badly bruised. How many queens left? 2. That's less than that larva count. 17 more corruptors on the way. He can make them into broodlords as long as he still has a greater spire, which he does for now, but Showtime is in the main base. Reynor is down to 190 supply, which is significant because he can't build anymore. He doesn't have the money in the bank, and he's losing his entire tech tree while Showtime is still mining from all of his bases. But the investors come back to the main. The Tempests are being knocked out of the sky. The Archons are obliterated by the Broodlords, but the Broodlords themselves being targeted down in turn. Down to 3. Immortals showing up to the party. And still, 6 more Ultralisks are on the way. But the Immortal count is so damn high. He recalls most of them out of Reynor's main. How many Immortals? He's got 10. And the Immortals, look at you came to the wrong neighborhood. Ultra's certainly a optimistic choice, but he's running out of options. More Immortals on the way across. Broodlords are obviously helpful, but there are only 3 left. Takes out a Tempest, but the Archons are going to take out a lot of the Corruptors in turn. The Corruptors don't have much of an opportunity to really do anything now. But Reynor has their Tempests in them. I think Showtime is held. He has 10 Immortals. He still has Templar with the army. 3 Broodlords are not enough. A Fungal. Is he going to try to follow that up with the Ultras? He knows what's going to happen to anything less than a massive Ultra surround. Broodlord count down to 2. Trying to make another one down to 1. And G. Showtime holds. The wall holds. Reynor tries to batter it down, but D. Mawa holds strong. What a series. Every game, I think, could have gone either way. Up through over 20 minutes, which is just madness. But it feels like Showtime kind of got a beat on Reynor's intense, but also risky style. That late game base trade option. Showtime's army just better in a heads-up fight, but Reynor's army better at running around it. Eventually, he was able to pin him down and knock him out, but not before one of the most dramatic series I've ever seen, really highlighting why Zerg versus Protoss has become such a great matchup. Showtime with that Reynor-style Immortal Archon against the man himself. Well, I hope it made your day a little bit better. If you got the means and motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. But thank you for watching. Make sure to check out Recommended if you haven't yet. That's super helpful. If you're looking for more, if you can handle it after all of that. But either way, see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.